some reason I thought we had additions, but go ahead.
Your Worship, I've placed a couple of other items on the agenda. I know the intention was to meet and just discuss budget today. The transit van, excuse me, request is very timely, and I'd like you to address that today. The deer hunting could be deferred until the next committee of the whole at your pleasure.
Yeah, let's do it. Good? Okay. Second by Wade. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, budget.
Okay, so with the budget, we passed out a package for you a couple weeks ago, just to get it in front of you, give you a chance to take a look at it. Asked if there were any questions. There really weren't any questions sent to me. I did have to directors about a couple other items, and I think when we left that meeting, it was asked that we kind of review it to see if we could find up to basically $40,000 in changes, because as it sits right now, where the budget package in front of you shows about a $39,000 deficit. So I've gone through it. In summary, it can be done. I've looked at about 28 minor changes to come up with the $40,000. So there's nothing huge in there. So it's a lot of $1,500 there, $2,000 there. There were a couple of accounts that we, when reviewed, needed to be increased. So, but again, they were small. They were like in the 5,000 range. So, all in all, it can be done with a lot of small changes. I do have a summary of them. Again, nothing major. A few, in the transit, we could probably, raise revenue a little bit by a couple $1,000s here or there, some provincial court fines, even in our bank interest. So we were looking at every single account basically and saying we could increase this by 1,000 or 2,000. And then on the expense side, same thing. I went through every line again and said, if we really had to, we could probably decrease these by 1,000 or 2,000. So again, I've come up with about 6 revenue lines and 22 expense lines that we can tweak a little bit, and the net effect would be a $40,000 difference. A $40,000 difference, so to bring our budget back to balanced.
One to cover up 36.
Yes.
There were 36, or there was deficit when we left out last week. What he's done, he's found it, he's going to be $40,000,
Yeah, it was in general, yeah. So I don't know if you wanted me to go through the budget as was, because we didn't get a chance to before. I can go through the departmental summaries if you like. I don't know if you've had a chance to go through the binders. I think some have been busy or away, that kind of stuff. So.
1920? Is this the 1920 budget? Yes. So, what? If you have a question, put your lights on. I do have one too. Go ahead there, Cliff.
So where do we end up with the library tax? Because Jeff and I have had some discussions since last week about that. And does it impact the budget?
Yeah, it doesn't impact the budget. Basically, it was a net zero anyway. If we taxed them, we were giving them a grant. So we've agreed, based on your wisdom last meeting, to hold that one in aside in reserve. until the situation is clarified with PVSC. And so we followed up, we've been in contact with them.
Yeah, and at this point, our actual tax bills went out just at the end of last week. And the library would have gotten their interim bill.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all based on the information from PVSC, we would bill.
But they've been told at the library that, are they the ones who pointed it out to us? We pointed it out to them. They know that they got the tax bill, but they're
Yeah, they
going to be revenue neutral to them.
Right, they corresponded with us to advise us that they were incorporated under a Public Libraries and Institutes Act, which would give them an exemption, but it's up to PVSC to make that change in the role. And so we've been in touch with PVSC with that information, and you know, if they make that change quickly, then there'll be no impact. If it takes them a bit of time, we're going to be back at the table here in 2 weeks, so we can sort of see where we are then, and if there's any action we need to take in terms of providing a grant to ensure the tax bill doesn't attract interest, we can deal with that.
Yeah, good.
So the changes that you spoke about to bring about a small surplus, they're not, they're not in this binder.
No, they're
No.
not. They're
So-
not. I've
so-
gone through the binder since our last meeting.
Yeah. I went through the binder and didn't have any real questions. Sometimes even I can't understand all of the activity, but, so is it appropriate to have a motion to approve the budget with changes as presented by our CFO? I'm comfortable doing that, but I just wanted to know if it's appropriate at this point.
I think it might be just important to point out, I know Councillor Mooney wasn't here at our last meeting, just on the page 1 is the summary of the bigger items that are in or not changed, and kind of our budget notes, that page 1. So again, and just a reminder to everybody that, you know, our tax assessments are up a little bit. So right now, we're budgeting just the same tax rate as last year. A 1 cent tax change would make a 42,000, just under 42,000 difference. About 13 of that's would be commercial, and 27 or 28 would be residential. We continue to fund depreciation in this budget. It's up to $2 million, which is an increase of 100,000, and we're able to do that because of our debt and interest expense payments. We've got another loan that was paid off that had a $100,000 principal payment, so we won't have that this year. So that debt is part of our depreciation, always been that way. So that expense is down to 100, so we increased the depreciation to 2 million. And this budget does not take in any extra new debt for capital projects. Sewer rates, garbage rates, and compost fees are all held at the same rate as last year. There is a new line in our current budget for the phased-in tax rebates. So our first business got one at the end of last year, so we've just budgeted a small amount for our upcoming year. The RCMP contract is increased by 100,000 in this budget.
Chair?
Yep.
Oh, hold it. I got Phil first. That's okay. Put your light on there, Cliff, so we can.
Yeah, so you did, so it's 104,000 increase on the
Increase from
RCMP.
last year's budget.
Yeah, what about, Chair, a few years ago when Billy Joe was president of the Union of Nova Scotia Municipalities, went to Halifax on that memorandum of understanding that the government backtracked on, like it's going to stay static, but then they put an increase on that. Well, how does that work? Do we get increased every year on that? I think that's for corrections.
I was going to say, I think that was corrections or whatever.
Yeah, corrections, what is it? Was it the 3 of them, Jeff? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we get an increase in that every year? Is it a small increase, or how's that work?
Yeah, it's all based on their budgets, but yeah, there's been, I think this year one of them changed by $800.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, go ahead, Cliff.
So I noticed that when we looked the police budget's, under protective services, the police budget has increased. In fact, it's now slightly bigger than the fire budget. So is that just, so I take it that our obligations under the contract for the policing budget have a built-in increase? Is that what it is?
Yeah, we have a contract directly with federal government on the RCMP. And in the past, what we've done is, I think we've taken the full contingent budget, which we get from them, but we've never budgeted the full amount because there's always vacancies and those types of things. So
Right.
Jeff and I have always budgeted a little less than their full. I think last year they actually were pretty much fully staffed, so we were off a bit.
The follow-up question to that then is, does the budget include a contingency for what you project the outcome of a settlement of the outstanding labor negotiation with the fire service?
No. No, it doesn't.
So what's the assumption that you're using?
I think what we did is we put in, I may have put in the 2% that the cost of living that the town staff got, but nothing over and above that. I would have to double check that.
Actually, I think that's something we should be talking about in camera, not here.
Yeah.
Sorry I asked the question,
No,
frankly.
that's it.
Yeah. We'll leave it at that, thank you.
Okay, so tab 6,
Yep.
line 19.
On the capital budget, yep.
I don't know what the difference is.
Yep.
I can't tell the different tabs. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it is capital. So line
fine.
19 under tab 6, that first page, is that, because it's even across the 350,000, is that more than we've been doing in the past?
We started 350 last year. We were doing 250 before,
Okay, good. All right.
and that's in our capital budget for street paving.
So that's like a
In our
30%
operations, we
increase.
still have the paving and patching, which I think is at 175. So we do have 175,000 budgeted for patching. And
On
then
top of this 350?
On top of the 350.
Okay.
Yes.
And plus the parade glebe, on line 25 there?
Yes.
So that includes everything, right? So really, that's paving as well?
Parade and glebe would be paved with that project, yes.
Okay, so we're spending more. I just need to be
Yeah.
able to say that while managing expectations, which are tremendously high.
Yeah.
Good, I'm glad that it's more. Thank you.
Did we have any left over last year in that paving budget, Jared, do you remember?
Yeah, and that shows in the gray column.
Yeah.
The gray column is like a summary of
111.
everything from prior years, so we've got 111,000.
Do we carry
So
that
this,
forward?
this current year, we could spend 450.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay?
How come you're looking at the fire chief?
Well, he has to drive over the bumps, apparently.
Yeah, that's, yeah, no, I was just kind of thinking about the 450, that's all.
Yeah.
How does the new number for the gas tax work in there, Jeff?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask that as well.
How's that new number for the gas tax work in, Jared?
At this point,
You don't count their chickens before they're hatched? You wait till you get
that's
the
right.
chick-
We haven't done anything with that.
Okay.
Okay. So when we
I got one more.
When we do get it, yeah, your light's on there, Cliff. When we do get it, we get to say,
We could find some eligible projects that we could do in addition.
okay, go ahead, Cliff.
So, item 11, you've got school expenses are budgeted for part of the year. So I assume that the assumption is that the
I'm on the wrong page.
school issue will be resolved by will be resolved sometime during the current year.
Yeah, I think early this.
In other words, our expenses will stop at some point. That's the assumption?
That's the assumption in this budget,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm not going to ask any more than that.
No,
because
that's a good
anything
point,
more than
though.
that would, again, be maybe.
Yeah, we're on the timeline. Good. Okay, you're on there, Jim, sorry.
I made a motion to approve the budget and listening with interest to the discussion. after, I guess I can still ask, are we all going to be in favor of the tax rate remaining the same at 166 and 428?
I'll second the motion.
No.
No, it hasn't. Good. Okay,
I'll second your motion to approve.
okay. So the motion's
Been
to
moved
approve
and
the budget as
presented.
presented,
with
and
the ch- with the
Cliff seconded
changes,
that.
And with the changes
the
that
change made
Jerry
by
has
Jerry.
talked about.
Okay. Any further discussion, anyone?
Yeah, what about the, Jim, what about the,
Where are you?
I don't know where I'm gonna be, the project on the Hayley Road,
Oh, that's, thought I saw that.
the
Sidewalk.
Ellis, yeah,
Yeah, I saw that in there.
Yeah, on the bottom of the capital budget, I just put
Okay, right
three,
on.
three placeholders.
Yeah.
We don't even have amounts or kind of I don't know, we have an idea, I guess, or concept, but no
Yeah, there
hard
it is.
numbers or anything
You
else,
see it,
so.
Phil?
yeah,
Number 56?
But they wouldn't be done in our current year of 1920.
okay.
Wouldn't be done,
They
it wouldn't be
won't
done,
be?
it wouldn't be done this summer.
Yeah,
Right,
right on.
so. And we're only looking to, on the capital budget, you're only looking to approve the 1 year.
Oh, gosh, help us. Okay, Deputy, good one. All right, anybody else, anything for Jerry? Go ahead there,
So
Jim.
I just want to make sure that we're all comfortable with the tax rate remaining the same. Is that what you're suggesting, Jerry, at this point?
In this package, yeah, we can.
The same for,
we
as it
can
was
make it
this
work.
year, for 2019, 2020?
Yes.
And I'd like to stress your worship.
Yeah.
Jim Dell.
No, I just want to make sure that we're comparable. I can be a wee bit, because I've mentioned a couple of times, cost of living increases, and I can be a little bit concerned. The budget surplus that you're projecting is, would you say, fourth
Will be
minimum?
a couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
It's
Anyway,
basically a balanced budget.
okay, I can be okay with that. I'm just a little bit uncomfortable, though, looking for some opinions.
Go
What
ahead
about-
there,
I
Phil.
think the
Hooks in
only
the
thing,
water,
your
no one's
worship,
biting.
is I agree with the tax rates, residentially and commercially, but I think I'm like you, is I'd like to see us get that money out the door on that street paving one, to see what we can do with that, so.
Yeah.
Maybe the engineer might have we have some ideas on that, between the engineer and Chad and Jerry, how we can get that out the door? I know it's hard when you're dealing with, commercial enterprise that has bigger projects and the amount of money that we're working with here, but across the province, I just hope we can get that out the door, that's all.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So last year, we had a transition year when our previous engineer retired and Charles came on, and so I think we did a pretty good job of getting $250,000 out the door. Charles corresponded with me yesterday just about the process for this year, and he's going to work closely with Chad to identify the streets to be repaved. And bear in mind that although we didn't spend the entire budget last year, there was a fairly significant stretch on Water Street that didn't get done, that had been planned to be done.
That's right.
So I think they did a pretty good job last year, all things considered, and I'm sure they will again this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and the only other question I had, I lost my place. $95,000, there it is. The fishing wharves, are we, maybe you know better. Industrial Commission doing anything on that? Like that's, we're a couple of years out, and we got a lot of work done. to be done.
Councillor Hood and Councillor McLeod were at the meeting at the Industrial Commission last night, and there is a letter that went into the Minister Jordan. I think we're going to contact her MP to talk to her about some of the concerns we have on funding of some of the harbors and the wharfs, how they do it,
And I did have that
and
preliminary
I
discussion
think
with her.
maybe
in Ottawa, yeah.
we'll go on camera for the other part
Yeah.
about some of the funding arrangements and some other things
Yeah,
that
good,
we talked about last night, how we're getting settled at the Industrial Commission.
excellent.
So there might be an opportunity to spend some more, but
Yeah.
we are still spending, what was the number given to us last night? Was it 80,000 that we're putting in there now? We know it's, was it 50? 50,000, and we know that needs some significant upgrades, but that was for
Should get us
ladders.
a couple boards and a couple,
Yeah, ladders, yeah, but that has been a concern over the last few years, and hopefully with the situation with the contract, talking to the minister, I know things will be at a standstill with the federal election, but,
unless we do it now.
yeah, and those contacts are gonna be made, and we might need a little help, your worship.
Yep,
That letter that was authored was written in March, and at this point last night, we had not heard back even with the receipt of that letter. So your conversation with Miss Jordan, is that since March?
it was in Ottawa, so March, what are we?
April,
I didn't have a copy of it, I just spoke to her,
but that,
You made it the day before, the day after.
I probably did,
but
but I
that was
didn't.
since we authored the letter in the 14th of March, I think, Jeff,
Yeah.
was mentioned last night. And I'm wondering if that your conversation with Bernadette Jordan was after that date.
It was probably after, it was the sport congress. Yeah,
No,
it was in April, so,
Yeah.
but,
So we
she may
haven't-
not have gotten it, number one, and actually, our MP was with me. I said, we are coming for funding for the wharves and the desperate. So, yeah, so I'll reach out again. Okay, so are we, anything else? You good? Oh, sorry, okay.
Okay. I just wanted to mention, in this plan, so it is a multi-year plan, but what you're actually approving in terms of or being asked to approve in terms of a budget is the plan for 1920. So in the discussion that Jerry and I have around capital budget with the engineer and with others, is we project out. We try to project out a few years what's on the horizon to hit us. And so those expenditures around the wharves are because we know an expenditure has to be made, because we know there's likely a local share, and we take a shot at what our share of the local share might be, and we plug that in here in a future year. But it is not, we're not asking you to make that commitment today, but simply to be aware that there is a fairly significant expenditure that you're likely to have to make in the next couple of years if we're lucky enough to find matching funding. So it's the column in bold, the 1920 plan that is part of the actual approval for today.
Good, okay. Cliff called the question. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Yes, capital and operating to council, okay? So thanks, Jerry and Jeff and everybody. Yep.
Jerry, did you want to talk about the water budget?
Yeah, I did print off some stuff. I'll just pass this up first.
Thank you. Don't let me forget that. Yeah.
So just a quick reference on how we got to where we are today with the water utility budget. For the past 3 years, our budget's was pre-approved by the UARB. So it was pretty straightforward. We just plugged in what our consultants did 3 years ago and pushed forward with their budgets. Over those 3 years, some of the lines didn't project well. I guess some things didn't happen. We had projected back 3 years ago to have 2 engineers playing, so we were, there were some budget variances, I'll just say that, with some of the maintenance lines and some of our salary lines. So this year, the UARB ruling has expired, so we're budgeting it again ourselves. So there's some significant or some changes in the budget to budget line. But I worked with Chad, Rob, and Charles, and went through our operations for the water utility over the last 3 years, looking at actuals, and then trying to budget, put together a budget for our current 19-20 year. Got to that process, part, and finalized, or set that up, sent it off to the chairman of the water utility, and sent the final copy or final drafts off to Charles, Rob, and Chad again for a final review. And the only change, I think, that came of that was a maintenance line on the towers, some extra painting or scraping, something for about $14,000. So from the draft that went to the water utility chairman, so Cliff, the only change from what you would have seen on your computer that was sent to you is a $14,000 increase in the maintenance, and then I just decreased one of the capital items by an equal amount. So the first page is just the high-level summary of what the water utility budget would look like. And again, it shows the 19-20 budget, which is what we're looking to approve. It shows the 18-19 budget, which would have been the final year of the UARB approved budget. And it shows the year-to-date actual for 18-19 to date. Now, there will be some changes to that. I can't think of anything major there, so there will be a surplus in the water utility. But a lot of the entries are getting done, and come on, these were just printed out this morning. So there will be some changes. We won't end up with a $339,000 surplus, but I would expect there will be a surplus in the water utility.
So you put Cliff in charge of the water utility and there's a surplus.
Yes.
Good stuff. Go ahead there, Cliff.
I don't think I had much to do with the surplus.
Part of that, again, would be projecting out 3 years, what we were going to do, and then the last year has been, again, as Jeff mentioned, and a bit of a transition year for the water utility as well with the engineer change.
Yeah.
So if you go to the last page there, it will tell you some of the projects that are either going to be done in the coming year, this year, or in the coming year. And the big one we talked about, we approved the contract for the SCADA system in a recent council meeting, so utility meeting. Item 10, Goodwin Drive water main. There's a lot of money for that. What's the matter with it right now? I take it's not working right or something.
The Goodwin Drive, he's looking at it. He's looking at that list. Got a copy.
Goodwin Drive's short one-way street.
Yeah,
That
what
runs north from Prospect.
What we did on the capital budget is Charles and I and Chad, I guess, pulled together all of the different capital budget projections from our engineering department from prior years. And then I looked, and then I got information or projects suggested from Rob, Chad, and Charles. And that's where you'll see in the 1920, there's a lot of smaller items, you know, excluding the Glebe Parade Street part. And those projects were projects that I think that came up from operations, but they're more of a capital nature. And so what you see out in the 2021 year, which is one of the project, the Goodwin Drive project, we pushed all those projects out to let our engineering department kind of figure out what might be priorities.
So, I don't know if you know, do we have, are we providing water there now? I thought we were. Yeah,
Yes.
I thought so.
Yeah.
We are.
So what's the issue there? Do we have to replace the main?
I'm not sure. It was on Dave's list. I don't know of any issues we have on the drive except for the fact that the water main is a 3-inch diameter.
So basically you want to bring it up to fire standard?
Yeah.
So the other one is interconnection of the new transmission with Dayton. That's a big item. So we currently use the old water line from Lake George as a transmission line. So the water comes all the way to town on the new line, gets rerouted and sent up the Pond Road on the old line right out through Dayton and the rest. Is that correct? That's what I understand. So what you're going to do is alleviate some of that and you're going to connect the new line somewhere to provide service over to Dayton. Is that correct? So what will happen when you do that? Are you going to have...
Again, I think this was a project that was on Dave's radar in the past. So I think he just wanted to provide another interconnection from the old transmission main into the new transmission main for several reasons. Right now, if the old line fails, we really don't have many options for providing service to the customers. So this interconnection would provide some more options if parts of the old line failed.
All right,
That
so
old
if
line,
you had a failure between town boundaries, we'll say,
yeah,
and Dayton, you'd still be able to supply from Dayton outward
yes, yeah,
and vice versa?
you're right.
See, what we're doing is we're using the old cast iron, almost worn out water line that used to be our main water line. It is the distribution line now, since we brought the new system on, see, from everything from the town boundary all out through Pond Road, Dayton, even out to the school,
Right.
and all in between. Ideally, someday, we'd have a whole new line out through there, wouldn't we?
Yeah, and so that line,
Because, you know, the line, one of the reasons we had to replace it was could not withstand the pressure because of its age on
Correct,
the
yeah.
system. As a distribution line, there's a lot less demand. We're not putting as much water through it.
yeah. So
Okay.
I think we need to maybe look at replacing the old transmission line, which is now a distribution line. Recently it's been giving us some grief. And so the more interconnections you have between the new transmission line and the old, you'll be able to phase in replacement of the old transmission line.
So the other thing is the LiDAR the LiDAR survey, that's been on our radar for about 3 years, and what we were waiting to find out is whether we could actually do LiDAR. What a LiDAR survey is to map the bottom of the lake, to determine the volume of the lake. And to do that, to use LiDAR, which is cheaper than some other methods, you have to go out in the lake with some kind of a device that tests the turbidity of the water to determine whether the LiDAR can penetrate the water and do the survey. That was a holdup. Have we done that, you know?
We have not done that, Councillor.
But this is something that we've been pushing that back for a couple of years, and the province has been pushing us on that to finish up some of that work that we're working on there.
I think that the value of the data that we would get from that has kind of diminishing returns, especially for the price tag.
I was hoping it would go away. I mean, you know, it has to do with trying to determine how much water's in the lake and how much we can take out of it and how much we have available, and all this issue about putting water over the dam in a drought and running the risk that we run out of water here for the fish plants and firefighting and all the rest. And I'm not sure where we stand on that right now. We pushed back somewhat hard on this because we know darn well that the feds used to take 6 times as much water out of the lake as we did when they ran the fish hatchery, and if necessary, they ran the brook up there dry. And we don't know why we have to run a river down through there when we have a drought going on. Enough said for now. But
Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
I was just
Thanks,
wondering,
Chad.
Goodwin Drive is in the county. It's on the other side of Prospect Street. How does, any shared costs there, or what's the?
this is the water utility, Jim. They pay for it, $110.
Good, that's what I wanted to hear. And the, we're good. Yeah, well, I was expecting that answer.
A long time to recover how much it's going to cost
your light's already off. Okay.
So
good.
just one more comment on the capital budget. We did our best to try to come up with what we could do in the current year, which would be the 1920, which is what we're looking to get approved. The other projects, we kind of did our best guess of when we could do those, and the ones that are further out, to be, totally honest, I'm not sure what the projects are, and I think Charles was trying to figure out reasons why they were on Dave's list. So they were just pushed out a year or two to try to figure out what those reasons are. When we do have more, and Charles has more information on why those need to be done, they could be pulled into the 2021 year and different projects moved around again. But we're looking for the current year, the list of smaller projects with the one Glebe Street project in there.
Great, good. So do you need us to do anything with this? Okay. Recommend, we want to recommend to the water utility. Okay, okay, moved by deputy, second by Councillor Cleveland. Any further discussion, folks? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay.
I just want to clarify one thing.
You may.
But if they want the street paved, they got to go to the province. 100% dollars.
Don't, that part makes me cry. That's going to be that has to be a fight this year. It's not right at all. Okay, so deer hunting. CAO?
So, Your Worship, I had some correspondence from a citizen who is becoming quite interested in finding a solution to the deer issue. Everyone knows that we seem to have more deer around town than any time in the recent past, and so we've talked at this table about solutions. We've met with representatives from Department of Natural Resources on the issue. And those that were there will recall that we were told that they basically don't come in beyond town limits. They service rural areas when it comes to wildlife. And in a recent conversation, the citizen was advised by a representative of DNR that DNR could take a more active role within the town jurisdiction with the town issue if it was requested by the town, and that they might consider changes to the current hunt restrictions, including bag limit and buck laws, if it were requested by the local municipality. And so I don't have any information to suggest how likely any of those changes might be, but it might be a couple of actions that we might want to request DNR become active in helping us solve the issue within town boundaries, and secondly, to reconsider, review the current bag limit and hunt restrictions for deer in the local area to help to address what appears to be an overpopulation that's starting to create more and more conflicts between human activity and the deer population.
Okay. So my thought on that is whatever it takes. If it means contacting DNR, who, I get phone calls, emails, notes from people all the time saying DNR says they can't come into town. So I believe that part. I mean, I understand that's a fact. So whatever it will take, Jeff, to allow them to come in and do something, they can increase the bag limit. I also understand they could take them out. I think they'd come back in town, but apparently we're told that if they take them out far enough, they don't come back in. I can't even fathom that. But what do we need to do next? Is it a letter to DNR? Okay. Okay. So I'm looking for that motion. A letter to DNR. Go ahead there, Wade.
I'll make that motion. We absolutely need to take care of this, and I've been frustrated in conversations with DNR. They just don't seem to, listen
No.
at all. So it's become a frustrating kind of situation. So let's do this.
Okay. Okay, moved and seconded. Are you good on that one? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Do we need to do anything else? Is it gonna, that letter gonna include increasing the bag limit and coming in and doing?
All options.
Right, all options, okay. With a timely response back to the town. I don't want to hear like 5 years. Okay. If there were one municipal unit, we could handle it, because we'd be, yeah. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Transit van. CAO?
So, Your Worship, we have a request that has come about as a result of, I guess, well, I believe it's because of the Mariners' success. It might be other factors, but the Knights of Columbus had booked their large van to provide a tour during the Knights of Columbus annual convention, which is going to be held in Yarmouth here, May 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And on one afternoon, from 1 until 4 p.m., they are planning to do a 3-hour tour for the partners, taking them to the lighthouse and taking them to another museum. Looking here, travel to Wedgeport to visit the Tuna Museum. They've been able to secure alternate transportation, but they were wondering if we would be able to make available the van that we had purchased for an alternate for our transit service, if we could make that available the one afternoon with a driver to allow them to provide the tour as they had planned. And so my suggestion to you is that if you wanted to entertain this, that we have requested confirmation from our insurer that this would not in any way compromise us in the insurance side. So anything you did here, I would say, would be pending approval from the or confirmation from the insurer. The second thing is, I'm suggesting to you, if we were to do this, it would be at no charge. So we wouldn't be getting into the business of chartering a van, because we know that that industry is regulated, and we don't want to get in conflict with the local industry at all. So it would be a donation on behalf of the town, or a goodwill contribution. So that's for your consideration. I'll stop talking and answer any questions you might have.
Okay, I'm just gonna throw this out there. I'm not against it by any means. We just need to cover ourselves with regard to precedents, because we don't need every weekend somebody asking for the van. That's what scares me.
I think, Jim, you second that?
Okay. Go ahead.
And from what I understand, CAO is probably, after this, we will be looking to dispose of the van in one way or another. There might be an organization that you suggested that might have an interest in it. They just don't know it yet. But I think it's a one-off because of the hockey situation and what happened.
Yeah, I'm good. I just want to make sure we, go ahead, CAO.
Yeah, so we have begun steps to dispose or to divest ourselves of that van. It just hasn't happened yet, and it is parked out at the Public Works building. I think it attracted the attention when this sort of emergency arose, and so it's a request, and so it's for your consideration.
Okay, question?
Question.
Oh, go ahead
I
there.
was going to say I support wholeheartedly the desire on the part of the Knights of Columbus, so thank you very much. That's all I want to say.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. We have some in camera, but can we do the, so do we need to do the, yeah, we can do this now, right? Okay, so motion to adjourn, please. Thank you. Okay, so we're going into council. So call the meeting to order. Record of attendance, absence with regrets, declaration of the conflict of interest, approval of agenda, additions or deletions. Anybody?
Do we need that one, Jeff, for the van?
Okay, so I'll put 6D, van. Okay, we good? Approval of the agenda?
What about the deer hunting one? Do we need anything from there?
Yeah, let's do that now.
Get it off and gone?
Yeah, deer hunting. Okay.
At our last committee of the whole, there was reference made to a letter from MP about the changes to Bill C68, which impacts potentially the water utility in terms of, it's amendments to the Fisheries Act that are proposed and before the Senate right now. And so in your packages was a letter from an MP from Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke. And she speaks to the problems that may be encountered by rural municipalities like ours. We're a rural municipality, or
We sure are.
yeah.
Sometimes.
If these amendments to the Fisheries Act go through as proposed, and I think there was some indication we might be preparing a letter. I don't know if we need any further council action or direction on that, because I've talked with the CAO, and we're going to dig out a letter I did quite a long 2 years ago on this topic that went off to government, and of course we got our usual non-reply. So do we need any more?
Okay, CAO.
So it's a question of timing. If we need to get that letter off before the May council meeting, then we should pass a motion here.
I think we should do it. We should get authorization, if
Sure.
council would give it, for the CAO, myself as chair, to frame an appropriate reply and submission to the Senate.
You make that a motion, Kyle?
Oh,
Okay, so I'm going to put letter. Okay, all right, so the ferry terminal RFP. Oh, can I have a motion?
Motion to accept the agenda.
Thank you.
Your worship.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Ferry terminal RFP, CAO.
Your worship, from the committee of the whole meeting last week, there was a recommendation from staff and recommended from the committee of the whole to council to approve CBCLs as the prime consultant on that project, and so be looking for a motion to ratify that decision.
Okay,
So moved.
second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Grants? Go ahead.
Your worship, the reworked grants sheet is attached to your agenda, and just taking a quick look at it here as I'm speaking. So we'd be looking for a motion to approve those grants, and as I say, the only outstanding item is with regard to the public library, and that will be dealt with. We'll talk about that again in May. So a motion to approve these grants would allow us to do that process for those organizations who have just recently received their tax bills.
Good.
As well, if we wanted to in the same motion, you could approve the operating grants, but that is you can defer that till the May meeting if you wish.
Both, okay. Go ahead, Counselor.
so one of these organizations recently received just south of $1 million in a grant from the federal government. And I'm wondering if the organization, in their application to the federal government, claimed their taxes as an expense and were funded, in fact, on that basis. I'm only asking, not trying to stir up the pot.
No.
But I noticed that as council, we've allocated about half as much as the request was. But we haven't examined that request very carefully. But I would think that an organization that's received over $900,000 in a grant would have enough money to pay their taxes this year.
So that money is allocated to programming and hiring people. So in that application for that grant money, it would have dictated how that money was to be spent on staffing. I know there was staffing.
What overhead?
Yeah, I can't remember what else, but
I'll leave it go, it just seems like. Okay.
we good? Okay, so any further discussion for both of them? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. MCIP staff grant. CAO?
Your worship, we have, and I think I've reported to council through email, we've received an approval from FCM for an Msip staff grant, and the information on that? It's on the agenda. Okay, thank you. Sorry, just take a second here. Put that in front of me. Okay, so the staff grant provides for $124,000 over 2 years, and it requires in each of those 2 years $15,500 from the host municipality. This grant would be applied to the assistant engineer position that we have filled by Demario Dunkley, and so it is within our operating budget that we would have this 15.5 easily available, and so I'm asking for a motion of council to approve the acceptance of the grant, and in doing so, you're making a commitment for those 2 years of the $15,500
That's the town of Yarmouth, right, not the municipality?
as the town of Yarmouth.
This municipality?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna send them.
Okay, somebody make that motion?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Van. Oh, yes.
Make a motion, we grant the request from the Knights of Columbus, for the
Okay.
use of the van.
Subject to insurance.
Yes, the conditions.
Okay, good. Second, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. The deer hunting, the letter to go. Okay, Councillor Cleveland making that motion, second by deputy. Any more discussion on that one?
Question.
All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. I literally, it looks, I can't even make out my writing.
Is that
This
the
last one.
That's the letter.
Oh, the letter.
For the water?
Or latte, whichever.
It looks like latte. I'm like, what? I got a coffee. All in favor. Okay, all in favor for a latte? Okay, so the letter for the water piece, yeah, fisheries, yeah. Okay,
So moved.
okay. What are you thinking there? Cliff, you good? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried, and right? And I can read you like a book.
Wait, wait.
Right. Yes, so motion to go in camera with Mr. Jackson and the rest of the crew. All right, let's go.